We are live, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good evening, one and all. On behalf of the Students Forum and the faculty members of Computer Science Department, I welcome our respected principal who has come over here for this event. Thank you, sir. And on this fine evening, I feel immense pleasure to welcome our resource person, Mr. Venkatachalam Subramaniam, for his second event for us. Thanks a lot, sir. And now I request our respected principal to share his valuable information about this event. Please, sir.
Good evening, one and all present here. I like to congratulate the Students Forum of Department of Computer Science, Transcode, and their team, especially the HOD in charge, Vijay Lakshmi, and B. Suresh for organizing this webinar for the students. And the speaker of today's program, Mr. Venkatachalam Subramaniam, has already gave a lecture to our students. Today he is with us for giving a lecture on digital transformation, which is a very wide topic for us. When we are moving from ordinary transformation to a digital transformation, we need lot of media to be transferred, and we need a skills in the digital era. For example, even if you go for a doctor, once upon a time, if a doctor is able to diagnose the problem, that is sufficient, for which they will give you the medicine or they will do operation. But now it is not like that. Each and every doctor is like an engineer. For example, if they want to go for any removal of stone, they have to use the technology, digital technology, where they will be using the camera, they will be using laparoscopic equipment, and they have to coordinate with the laparoscopic equipment. They have to bust the problem where it happened, bust the things, and they have to do the visual. They have to visualize the problem, and accordingly they have to give the solution for the problem in the human being. So the digitized concept, the digital transformation is not only for higher education. It has happened in all the fields of, whether it is the field of construction, whether it is the field of production, whether it is the field of airlines, whether in the field of automobile engineering. Lot of digital transformation has gone through. 20 years before, 30 years before, if you go to the manufacturing industries of car, it is different. Now, if you go to manufacturing industry of same car, it is totally different. It is totally digitized from starting to end. Assembling to completing the work, it was totally digitized, and you can monitor. Even when you take a car, previously when you want to, if you buy a car, only based on the knowledge of the mechanic, you can rectify the problem. But in the digital era, if you connect your car, computer available in the service station, it will tell that, the system will tell that, because each and every car is enabled with a microprocessor kit through which it will do the diagnosing system, and based on the diagnosing, it will tell that where the problem arises, and solution also will be given, and the mechanic, what you have to do, you have to replace the content, you have to replace the spare parts, that's all. So this is the digital era is a very fast area, it is a growing area. Now you will having technology, after 2 years the same technology will become obsolete. So this is a very vast technology which is very much important for the digital transformation, is very important for each and everyone. We are very happy with the ordinary phones. Now we are gone for a smartphones. It's a transformation. When I was using a mobile, first time mobile, it's a small mobile, keypads. But now you can see the growth of the mobile, how the digital transformation have done, and we need a special skill for operating the mobile itself. And you can see that most of the people, whether are used all the apps, all the systems have been available in the mobile or not. That is there. So with these few words, I like to thank the speaker for accepting our offer to be with our students to talk about the digital transformation. And also I like to congratulate the Department of Computer Science and the team for organizing this program for the students in the Transcode. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you for the valuable and wonderful introduction about this event, sir. Now I call upon Mr. Girish, Vice President of Student Forum, to proceed with.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening to one and all present here. I am C. Girish Kumar, Vice President of Transport Forum, and I warmly welcome everyone for attending this event. Today's webinar is about just an introduction about the digital transformation. Welcome our beloved principal, Dr. S. Santosh Babu sir, on behalf of the Computer Science Department, and I thank you for accepting our request. And I'm also very glad to invite our resource person, Dr. Venkatachalam Subramaniam sir, and very happy to see you once again, sir. Dr. Venkatachalam Subramaniam, sir, BSc MFM, currently pursuing PhD, who is also an independent consultant and also worked as a global service delivery head, Cape Gemini, which is in Bangalore. So, he's also a senior business executive with 31 years of in-depth banking technology and operations experience across diverse cultural environment. He has also established integrated technology, operated managed service in securities and data domain for Tier 1 bank to deliver business agenda. Proven expertise of local and global banking and capital market domain. He has a very strong blend of knowledge and experience in banking and service provider environments. He has been also recognized champion for diversity and inclusion, global trainer of DNA, and mentor for women in leadership at Capgemini. Strong prominent of learning and development as means to deliver service excellence focused on human capital development. He has also established BCP operating model within 2 weeks of the pandemic lockdown, with 95% of the team enabled with Wi-Fi and SLS Meet. We are very glad to have you here, sir, and I'm very happy to see you once again, sir. I also welcome our head in charge, faculty members, forum committee members, students, and the participants. Thank you, and I now request our resource person to start the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Loud and clear.
Please.
I'm sharing the screen. Are you able to see my screen?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, not it. Okay.
Yes, sir, it's visible now.
Okay. So thank you very much. And first of all, I want to thank the principal sir, and I think he set the stage very nicely. And the way he showcased the digital transformation that has taken place in the last 30 years, I think is a very great example of where we are now. And especially people who have not used mobile phones 30 years back now. I completely agree with them. It's a separate skill set to use the mobile phone now, and there is not a single area where we do not have digital transformation that has not taken place. As we go through today, we will see some of those experiences, and as he rightly said, it is a very vast topic. What we are trying to do here is we are trying to create interest among the students on the key technologies and transformation agents, across about 5 or 6 major ones that are happening in the digital world now. Then the students can pursue whatever they are interested in, and then make a career out of that. That's the objective of this. And I also want to thank the HOD Vijayalakshmi madam and other faculty members. With that, we'll get started today. And a belated happy Diwali to all of you. And I hope you all had a happy and safe Diwali. So what we're going to cover today, we'll see, I think some part we covered last time, but I thought it's important that we should do it in connection with the today's agenda. We'll see what is digital technology and transformation all about, and what are the key transformation agents. And there are quite a few. And very often what we hear is robotics, process automation, AI, big data, IoT, Internet of Things, cloud. And then I'll also share some of my experiences that from my own career, some of the successes and failures that will probably help you to, understand and put things in perspective. So digital transformation is basically what we are saying is to remake an existing process more efficient or effective. It is not that things are not being done now. Things are happening right now, whether you walk into a bank, whether you walk into a mall, whether you walk into a clinic, or if somebody is delivering milk at your doorstep or refrigerator at your doorstep. All this was happening even earlier, but now it has become more efficient and effective. How is that possible? It's because of the transformation that has happened in each of these domain areas. And the technology, what is being used is, is growing in leaps and bounds. What we had 2 years back doesn't exist anymore. And the automation tool that we used about 3-4 years back, and now I don't even know whether people are aware of the tool right now. Okay, so that's the kind of fast growth that is happening. The digitization or technology comes along with a very important aspect called risk of security and data privacy. So we covered that part last time. I think we need to look at holistically when we're talking about digital transformation. We need to also look at the information security and data privacy. So it will involve many different technologies, but the hottest topics now, as I said, are cloud computing, Internet of Things, big data, RPA, artificial intelligence. These are some of the few. And as we speak, there are more technologies that are being developed. Like, for example, the mobility. You have a mobile in hand and you can do anything right now. Okay, you don't even have to go out for 1 month. Everything will be delivered at your doorstep. And digitization is a way to help business transform. That's not a business by itself. The digitization is only a facilitator. The technology is only an enabler that will transform the business to grow and enhance customer satisfaction. I think we saw this, but it's very important that we need to reiterate and reinforce into ourselves how this digitization has made a huge change in human life. Wall Street is the biggest stock exchange, which is a New York Stock Exchange located in Wall Street. And robots have arrived on Wall Street, and humans need to learn how to work with them. Which means we can imagine there are billions of dollars being traded on every single day in New York Stock Exchange, where the traders are being replaced by bots or robots. JP Morgan Chase, which is one of the largest banks, top 5 banks in the world, is rolling out virtual assistants, which is basically digital assistants, to maintain queries from the clients, and if there have been any errors in the transaction processing or any standard inquiries that are coming in. That means huge call centers are going to be replaced. And a Bank of America client, a corporate client, made a $1.6 billion payment to a mobile phone, one-touch phone. What it means is the authorization, sending documents, signatures, everything is being taken care of by this mobility and the safety and control being built into a mobile phone. That means the person does not have to be sitting in office. And you're talking about a $1.6 billion payment, not 10,000 rupees or 1 lakh. Then Bernstein Holding LP, which is one of the largest investment bank in the world, has got a bot or a robot called Abby and gather 4 million data points in a day, which means that day-to-day bond trades that are happening across the exchanges, sitting in New York City, the trading desk or the people who are monitoring this trading get 4 million data points, and then they are able to execute their bond trades directly with the counterparty bots. That's a very interesting thing. On their end, they've got bots running the trades, executing the trades. On the counterparty side also, that is the buyer and seller on the other side, also are buying and selling through bots, which means all those hundreds of traders who have been doing this business are not required tomorrow. and US banks could axe an estimated 200,000 jobs over the next decade, as per a Wells Fargo research report. So, which means every single day things are changing, and it's all official information, quoted through Bloomberg. You can go back and check. So, coming from a banking and financial services environment, I can tell you I have seen the physical paper days, 30 years back, and currently today in 2020, the kind of phenomenal changes that have taken place. And if anybody had asked me 10 years back what would happen in 2020, I would not have imagined even 10% of what is happening right now. So the good news is there is a lot of opportunity for all of us to, enhance our knowledge and contribute towards this growth. And at the same time, there is always a risk of, a staleness of knowledge. Okay, so what I knew yesterday is of no relevance today. But with that pretext, let's get started. What are the digital transformation agents? The first and foremost is social media. I don't think I need to spend any time on this. I don't think there is anybody in this group who does not know Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp, or LinkedIn, or anything. In fact, probably I may know a little less than what the students know. But we know that when you go for a Google search or you go into Facebook, you know, you get a feeling that somebody is tracking what we are doing, and then based on our preferences and likes and dislikes, you see advertisements being popped up, messages are being popped up. They know that you are in Chennai, they know I'm in Bangalore. So social media is a big, huge transformation agent, and it's not only in day-to-day life, but also we are talking about even as big as in major policy making across the countries, and even elections, right? Social media is number one. The second comes is the cloud computing. All these days, when we started, we had a desktop, and then we started having a server, and then it became a client server technology. Then after that, it became wide area network when using LAN. Then after that, it became WWW. And now what we're talking about is software sold as you use. Okay, you pay as you use. You don't have to buy any of the software. The software and your data and everything will be stored in a particular cloud server. We'll talk about that in a little more detail, and how that will help the organizations to control their cost. Remote access and mobility, where any customer or vendor or partner is able to interact with another person through a mobile device and an internet connection. We don't need even a laptop. So now for everything we have an app, and then whether it's a bank, whether it's Amazon, whether it is your milk, whether it's your grocery, everything is available through a mobile device, and which means that you don't technically need a software as well. You don't need to download anything. All that you need to do is go into a iOS store or Android store, Play Store or whatever, and download this app. So that's a remote access and mobility. Then comes the big data. Now, what used to happen in the data analytics, at least the large part of my career, that what we have done has been that leveraging the transactional data in the banks and other related financial services organizations, and then we used to create some meaningful output out of this data analytics, and then use it for business decision. But the point is, now we realize there are data that's much larger than what we actually see on the computer. Right? We'll see what are those data and how it can help. Internet of Things. I think this is a very, very, very exciting technology. And there's also technology where there is also risk associated in terms of information security and also data privacy. But this is something which now, for example, an example of IoT could be, there is a packet that's being delivered by Amazon to you. And right from the time it is shipped, right from the time you placed order, until the time you get the delivery at home, or even after that, everything is being tracked. How is it possible? Because the item keeps moving from go down to the delivery center to another location to receiving location, all that. So we are connecting the entire, all the dots through a complex web of internet, and what we call as IoT. Robotics process automation. It's an automation of manual process. A lot of companies have started doing this. I would call this as a quick fix for cost efficiency. I mean, cost save and efficiency, speed, and where we replace human efforts with automated programs. And artificial intelligence is a much larger, intelligent systems or software program that bring to the table. It's not just replacing the existing processes, but also it gathers data and then starts analyzing the trends that are happening within the data, within the systems, and making use of and learn self-learning. We call it machine learning, call it artificial intelligence, or whatever we call it, cognitive computing. But it makes use of this knowledge and the inputs that are coming out of these day-to-day processing or day-to-day execution of this program, and then reinvest that knowledge into the program. So that's what happens. Self-guided cars or chatbots. Chatbot is something which you would have seen in many of the apps or the websites. The moment you go and ask questions, it's not that the chatbot was given the input of all the messages that are going to come now. No, not necessarily. Over a period of next 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, depending upon how human beings are interacting with the chatbot learns itself. So that's the power and beauty of this whole digital transformation. Now, let's start with I wouldn't say simplistic, but fairly easy to understand what we call as the robotics process automation, RPA. It's basically an automation of tasks across applications and systems. We go to a healthcare provider. There is a reception. There is another clinical room where they have to test. Take your samples, and then it has to go to another place where the lab is. Testing the samples, and then there is a report that's being created, and then it comes back to the reception, right? But there are multiple screens, multiple systems that are being used. So what we are talking about here is automation of tasks across application systems. And I'm sitting on a computer, I'm using multiple systems, 5-6 application systems I need to use. That's how most of the banks work, right? And after all this, transferring data from one application to another, you will get an output at the end of the process. Now, there could be many people working on this. The intent or objective of RPA is to transfer of work from human beings to bots. Okay, and it's an additional layer. Now, nothing gets changed in the existing systems, nothing gets changed in the existing applications. But we create a layer, on top of these applications, which run on, the source code or the program will be lying in the server. But you trigger that program, and then it runs on your screen, and you can actually see, instead of I typing that number, the client number or the trade account number or whatever, the bot types all this and then gets the data, right? So it automates the workflow, infrastructure related and back office processes, server logs being monitored. Okay, earlier people used to take out huge files of the server logs and then go through the entire log file and then see where there was a problem, where there was a lag, was there any issue, was there any data corruption, all that. But now that can be done through a RPA program. Now it can run on your PC, it can run on a laptop. It's basically a sequence of commands executed by bots. That's how they are called, under certain specific business rules on the screen. I would say, as I said earlier, more often it's seen as a quick fix for cost save. When I can implement this bot, okay, can I save some cost? And some of the biggest benefits, which I have at least we have personally seen, is that typically a human being works probably 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, and a bot doesn't need rest, right? And it can run for 24 hours. Once it gets logged into the application system, it can keep on working. And of course, unless otherwise there is a bug and there is a problem with the code, otherwise it should work completely. But some of the factors that we need to consider here is, what is the investment cost? Investment cost in the sense, how much do we need to develop this? What is the running cost? Once you develop, how often does it need enhancement and changes? It has to go through the entire SDLC life cycle. I know you all are familiar with SDLC. An ongoing maintenance of this bot, enhancement which saw, exception management. It is not that bots can deal with everything, and there will always be exceptions. How do you deal with exceptions? Out of, it's 80-20 principle. Out of 100 samples that you deal with, 80 could be a normal process, and 20% could be an exception that needs to be addressed by human beings. And more importantly is information security and controls. I just wanted to highlight one interesting point here. When we implemented the first bot, when we actually access a particular organization system, we get a login ID, we get a password, and you get multiple. That is to get into the network. Then after getting into the network for each of the application, you get a separate, if it's a single sign-on, the same thing will work. Otherwise, if it's a web-based application, then you need to give a separate login and separate password. But for that, they know the person's name is Venkatachalam Subramaniam, that is his employee ID. But what do you do for a bot? Bot doesn't have a name. Bot doesn't have a date of birth. Bot doesn't have a face. So this was the biggest stumbling block we had when we first time. So the organization had to change their policy, their information security policy, to include bots as users. That was the first breakthrough that we had to achieve. Otherwise, the bots cannot become users and get into the applicant system. So just to give you an example. Now, one particular example, and there are enough materials available in the books and wherever you refer to. But as a typical example that you can go through is, in any organization, buys sources materials or other things for their day-to-day running of business, and of course those suppliers will give invoices to the organization will give a purchase order, and once the delivery is done, the vendor will give the invoices. So he sent the invoice, email is received and printed, barcode, document is scanned, then you create a work item, then enter the PO. That's very important because the purchase order and the invoices have to be matched. And then you'll have to check whether the supplier name is correct. Yes. If it's no, then push it to the exception team. Then key invoice date, what is the invoice number, what is the date, what is the amount, does it match with the purchase order? Yes, everything is matching. Then amount is matching. Then you see all other information, like for example, the address, where the payment has to be made. All this information elements are being matched. Then you calculate the tax if there is anything to be deducted, or GST has to be deducted in Indian environment. Then complete invoice processing, and then it goes to the payment part. Now, what has been happening all this while? Every single step in this process was being done by somebody. Either one person does the whole thing, or depending upon the volume, somebody would receive and take a printout, somebody else would create a work item and enter the PO detail, somebody else would match the items. So there were many people who were working, but it is not a very efficient way of doing things, because very importantly, we need to understand is that this particular process, when more and more we do manually, is prone to error. And then there is a problem of scalability. Now, what happens, say, for example, during high demand season, the company would procure more items, more volumes, they will deal with more vendors. Suppose the invoices go up, then will the same number of people, 10, 20, 50, 100 people be able to process those volumes? Answer is no. So what is the solution to that? One, I'm not saying that is the only solution, but one solution is an RPA. Can you get a tool that can automate right from, which can give a command to print, and then which can also stick the barcode and scan the document. And then the bot will also go into the purchase order system and take the purchase order number, enter into the invoice payment system, then automatically match. If the match is not correct, then it pushes as an exception. Then it goes to the team, exception control team that will manage this. And if everything else is fine, then it goes through the whole process of creating this payment item and then close the work item. So it's a very simple example. This is one area where invoice processing is one area where we see a lot of robotics that has taken place. Now, if I want to learn RPA, if I want to enhance my skills in RPA, are there tools available? Yes, there are many tools, but some of the ones which are quite popular and quite well known in the industry, and also some of the tools that I personally engaged with is the ones that I am listing down here: Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, UiPath, Pega, and there are many more. Each one of them runs on a different technology. Okay, so as we saw at the beginning, this digital technology is so vast. I think each of this topic would require hours and hours of sessions, right? If you really want to get into in depth. But this, just to give you a background of what RPA is all about and what are the various tools available and what are the limitations that this RPA has got. Now, digital technology and transformation, my own experience. I think we saw that last time. I'll quickly cover this. In one of the organizations, we had large volumes of customer data to be processed. There were about 40 people doing this work. Manual processing, time consuming, there were quality issues and people not being available, or people had to work late. And then suddenly, out of a brainstorming session, we said, okay, there's a testing tool that is being used for automation of testing. It was not for processing transactions. That tool was to be used for uh, volume testing. So when you build any software, especially when you're going to deal with, like, for example, you're creating a module for railway ticket booking, or say, for example, for huge bulk orders, retail orders, or in the bank. So you need to test the volumes, whether the software is capable of. So this tool was being essentially used to test the volumes. Now it is basically the UI, graphical user interface based coding. No coding language that was required, menu driven, drag and drop, very comfortable. I'm talking about, this was about 13, 14 years back. Now, multiple levels of scrutiny and approval. Right? Now, what we did was, we said, okay, why don't we test this? We take this and then see whether we can use this tool because that's a very structured data. It used to come in a specific format, and it has to be transferred or inputted into the application system, and and then create the output file and then send it to the business partner, and then get further. So which worked, and then we could implement it in about 3 to 4 weeks, and there's been a significant improvement in quality, turnaround time, and of course the cost reduction. And people were able to go and do some of that work. It was a very routine work. People were not very happy with this work. But once this is done, of course, there was always a sense of uncertainty, and you may even call fear, right? And say, oh, what will happen to me? Okay, if this comes. And all that I can tell you from experience is, do not worry. See this as an opportunity. When this is not there, that means you are destined to do something more, something bigger. So that was one example. The other one, what we did was, this is using a proper RPA tool, where we get a lot of these stocks and bonds that need to be created in the internal application system, so that the bank can book their trades. When the banks, I'm talking about the global banks like JP Morgan or other banks, they do trades across various stock markets, about 150, 170 stock markets in the world. So these data has got to be captured in the internal application system, and it has to be done manually. It has to come from various sources. People used to manually create. It will come from multiple sources, website, other data vendors like Bloomberg, Reuters, Telecuts, all this. Now, in collaboration with the client, we agreed that, yes, let's try a robotic POC, which is proof of concept, right? So interestingly, it went off well, but it was a very small unit. It's only about 4 or 5 people work, but we wanted to start it in a very cautious way. Then we drew a project plan. After the POC was done, then what is going to be the cost benefit analysis? How long will it take to develop? What is it we are going to say? What will be the exception management? Then we did the entire process analysis end to end. That's very important. Now, all that you need to remember always, whichever role or job you take in any technology related work, is that garbage in, garbage out. Means whether it is digitalization or a C++ program or an SQL program, or you want to do some cloud computing, whatever you do, if your input is not going to be cleaned up, it's not streamlined, output is not going to be great. So it's very important your existing process is streamlined. If you want to automate only what is there existing, the same problem will continue even after automation. The automation is not going to improve the process. Automation will only improve the way it is done. It will not change the generic nature of the process. And then we did the testing. We went to the entire testing controls. We have the standard controls that need to be processed. Testing is another topic by itself. That is quality assurance. Then we did a very comprehensive risk assessment, which included, as I gave you an example of, what will happen, who will hold the password for the bot. That means bot cannot remember the password. So somebody has to go and log in, right? And what happens if the person doesn't come on that day? So these are some of the very basic challenges that we had. Then we put together a plan and a process to control this bot. And then very stringent client approval. Every single step had to be reviewed, and then it has to be approved. And more importantly is that managing the whole change with the employees. Because obviously they need to understand that it is for their own betterment, and so that they can go and do some other better work. Then ongoing maintenance. After that, we had to continuously maintain every 2 months, 3 months. We have to look at the program and see what are the exceptions that we have managed all this while, whether we have to enhance this bot or not. and then we eventually implemented. And the good news is it's still running, and there are many more bots that have been put in place. But what are the key big lessons that we have personally learned? One, I think the biggest thing is change management. I think the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because, one, obviously, when you're getting into the corporate career or whatever you're going to do, I think the first thing that you need to keep in mind is there's a huge change that is happening in the industry, in the market. There are various people involved, stakeholders, who employees, vendors, partners, clients. Okay, technology is a big stakeholder by itself, and technology will undergo change. Right, we need to deal with all these people when we are making any change in any industry. And out of the box thinking, whatever job we do, it doesn't matter. If you're going to go by the rule book and say this is the way I've been doing it for the last 5 years, that's the way I need to do the work, then forget it. There's no improvement that can happen. We'll have to always question the status quo. So why is that it should be done in this way? Right? We may not get an answer, but the question is we must ask this question and think out of the box. The third one is what is in it for me? This is linked to the change management. Employees will start thinking, okay, I understand that you're doing all this, but what is in it for me? So that means obviously we need to also have a lot of work that we need to do, how we are going to manage the clients, employees' expectations after the change is done, and face the change with optimism. Even after you start your work, after 2 years and 3 years, there could be a lot of changes that will come in. Every change, whether we like it or not, will happen. The best way to deal with this is face it and face it with optimism, and always prepare for the risk and failure. So we had a very big contingency plan. What happens if the bots fail, if it doesn't work? And we actually tested it. One day we said it in the morning. We said, okay, let's assume that bot is going to fail today. So we stopped and said, okay, now how will we do it? Then we could realize that, yes, we need to have a list of people who can do the work. We need to be readily available, call those people, tell them, start doing the work. So that was very helpful in doing this kind of a test. How can we manage these contingencies? Exception management and audit, that's very important. What are the exceptions, the 20%, 30% exceptions you get? How do you audit these cases? And the backup strategy and plan. If the bots don't work, and if the bots get corrupted, or if bots give wrong data, okay, it's quite likely. If suppose there's a bug in the, something gets corrupted, and then you find that, okay, the output is not proper. So we need to continuously audit output and see whether we need to replace it, and then, move to the next plan. Now, that is RPA. The next one is big data. I know we have been talking about, a lot of people say big data, and this is a huge, interesting area that is growing, which is a fact. Now, big data, as the name suggests, is huge. So why is it called big data? Because the definition of big data or data is not just about the data that is coming through our through our data servers or through the transactions that the company is doing or the individuals are doing. It is much beyond that. Examples, in a bank, you got banking transactions, and you also have data coming in from social media, emails, print media, and everything. So when clients are going to write emails saying that I'm not happy with your service, that doesn't come in any of the banking transaction. That does not come in the bank's app. When the person operates, he or she is not going to give that feedback. But the person is going to send an email, or the person is going to make a call and say that I'm not happy with this, or the person may write in Facebook or Twitter or anywhere. So that is social. That's very powerful, that data. And the data is typically what we see in a banking transaction is a fixed format data, which is structured data. The other one is unstructured. Your text, what you see, images, videos, emails, these are all unstructured data. It doesn't tell you exactly, what it interprets. That is where the big data analytics comes in. There are tools and platforms that can interpret these based on the business rules, and then they can, make use of this data for betterment. So big data analytics is all about utilizing the data for making meaningful business decisions. We have seen, many Indian banks have extensively used big data analytics to improve their risk management. Otherwise, earlier what used to happen was that typically, we all know about the KYC, right? Know your client. They'll give you what is my income, how many people are there in my family, and what is my expenses, what is my asset, what is my liability. Do you think you're a risk taker? There's a 20-page form, they fill all that. And then the risk management used to be done based on that. Okay, high risk, low risk, medium risk, whatever. But the point is, now the kind of transaction the company, the individual has been doing, okay, what is the pattern of these transactions? And if suppose the stakes are very high, he's asking for a big loan or a huge loan, and then are there any other news item about this person? I'm talking about industries, right? In the industry, all this was being done manually. Now with this big data analytics, all this get channelized. I'm not saying 100% everything is automated, but all this get channelized, and then the analytical tool or tools can interpret this data the way we give them the business rules and then give a meaningful output. And then it is much, much faster. That's very important. If all this is going to be done manually, it's going to take a lot of time. This can really improve the turnaround time. Some of the characteristics, before we get into big data, if any of we, interested in, there are a lot of people who may be very interested in dealing with data, right? So there is for those people, volume is huge, enormous. You remember in that Alliance Bernstein LP, we talked about how much 4 million, 4 billion, whatever, data points in a day. That is big data, right? So that is the kind of data which is being used, but there's no Excel, no data server, no SQL server can deal with this. Right? With due respect to all this, beyond a point, all these systems will crash, all the software will crash. So that means for this big data, if you want to consider all this information, all this data, the hidden information behind this data, then we need to move to a modern age technology. Variety, various sources, it could be anything. As we saw, structured, PDFs, audio, email, photos, you name it, whatever we see, whatever we receive is a data source. Correct? Now, for example, when we go to big data and AI, it's all once we grow, once we start learning more and more, we realize it's all interlinked, right? And the AI uses the big data to a large extent, and we see, especially when we are using the social media platform, how is that the Google or Facebook or anybody is able to realize that, oh, okay, I'm looking for a flight ticket from Bangalore to Mumbai, just because I did that maybe a week back, or I searched it for, or maybe I was looking to buy a refrigerator, or I was looking to buy a television, and say that, okay, now this is what you get, this is the price, you go to, these are the places that you can go and buy. You see all these ads. How is it possible? So that's because all this the behavior, what we call is the person who's operating or who's accessing the web, and based on his behavior, all this data points being collected, right? And that's being used on the artificial. We'll see how AI can work along with the big data. Velocity, the speed of data generation, and from various processes, internal processes, external client interaction, network, sensor, social media, anything and everything. Okay, so the speed could be enormous. It can come at top speed. Suddenly during the banking hours, it can be huge, and then during the weekend, it will go slow. Then variability. The variability is the inconsistency of data. Like for example, during the festival season, the data points, data flow will be very, very high. And then during probably the year end or the financial year end, people will not buy much. They will wait, or during the bonus time, they will wait for another 15 days before they buy. So that is a time where the data will be much lesser. Some of the benefits of big data, I'm sure maybe you can cover that in some other point called the NLP, natural language processing. So that's a very important technology that is used in interpreting the customers. Let me also tell you, we had an experience of implementing an AI-driven program. Deciding or inferring whether the person to whom the customer that you are talking to, could be classified into whether is a satisfied customer, dissatisfied, or okay, or is the person genuinely going to buy your product. All this could be data. Based on the data, these decisions could be, or these interpretations could be drawn. So we actually, based on the call center, right? When somebody calls you or we call somebody and say, okay, I've got this product. A person, I mean, the immediate answer is, I'm not interested. There's nothing to decide. If a person is asking more and more, then based on the AI, the tool can interpret this, and the NLP technology can infer, saying that, yes, you can put this customer in this bucket. So it's a very, very interesting, exciting program. And like this, there are so many things that are happening. Better operational efficiency. Obviously, we don't have to, we won't have a situation of ignoring certain data where important data that is being missed out. So it is very efficient. Better decision making. You don't have to wait for 1 week to get a report of a risk of the risk assessment of a customer. It will be much easier. We see in the banks. Better. Now, some of the tools. Okay, I mean, I have one couple of tools here where I've seen a demo. I've also seen some of my colleagues using it, which is Apache Storm, MongoDB, OpenRefine, Cloudera. There are quite a few tools available in the market. And see, these are some of the big data tools that will come. It is not a separate solution by itself. Basically, what it is it comes and then it sits in the enterprise system and then gives that output that what we're looking for. It's not like if you can imagine, it's not like an Excel that we download and then we pump in the data and then it gives the result. It's not the way how it works. So these are some of the tools. If anybody is interested, can go and check. Some of them could be open source, some of them could be paid. Yeah. Okay. Now comes the artificial intelligence. Now, a significant difference between RPA and artificial intelligence is AI automates repetitive learning, and then it discovers data. Okay, based on, say, for example, if there are same level of exceptions, if there is a particular customer, this person, whenever he sends the transaction or transfer requirement, bank, this person does not give mobile number, for example. Just making up an example, right? Over a period of, let's say, 6 months, with a corporate customer, so AI will have the intelligence. The moment this customer name comes or the customer ID comes, AI will have the intelligence to find out, means this person will not give the mobile number. It will not go into the exception. Of course, somebody needs to go and approve that, saying that, yes, you can use that mobile number. But just to give you an example, it adds intelligence to the existing products. I mean, there's nothing that I'm going to buy an AI system. So there's nothing called you buy an AI system. AI, like an RPA tool, works as a layer, right? It's an add-on. It's an enabler to the existing application systems. Progressive learning algorithms. We all know what's an algorithm, and it works in a sequence of steps. And then the AI has got the intelligence to go back and upgrade itself. Then more and deeper data using neural networks. And some of the very big AI that we all know is Alexa and Google Search. Google knows what you're going to search next time. Alexa knows what you're going to ask. Before, for 5 days continuously at 7 a.m. in the morning, you ask for something. So automatically you may get a reminder. On the 6th day, Alexa, because remembers that it's got the intelligence to check, okay, at 7 o'clock in the morning, he wants this. Then big data is available and the artificial intelligence gets most out of this. Some of the interesting tools that we have. Amazon Web Services, we all know, but Amazon Web Services is known for cloud computing and also for artificial intelligence. We have an AI one. Then deep learning for Java, it comes along with Java Suite. Then Mahout, OpenN. Then is a C++. I think the last one could be your open source, the Microsoft Distributed Machine Learning Toolkit, NewPick, and Oryx. These are some of the names. I'm not saying these are the best, but I'm saying these are quite popular, quite familiar. I'm sure some of you would have already covered in your course of your studying what you're doing now, or maybe doing outside. But these are some of the examples. Just a second, quick time check. I know we've got about 10 minutes left now. We'll see what best we can cover, and the rest anyway is available in the material. Internet of Things. Okay, this is another interesting thing. Internet of Things has been there for long. We all know CCTV or fixing a camera outside your house, and then especially abroad, it was started many years back, where people could keep a sensor on the door. If anybody breaks it open, it sends out an alarm. How is it possible? So there is a log, there is a sensor, there is a network, and there is a recipient device. Right, the information gets transferred, and that has grown exponentially now. Now this is being used anywhere and everywhere, correct? And as we know, very standard examples could be your delivery system, supply chain, right? Whatever we order, how does it come? How is it we are sitting at home, we are able to track where is our courier, where is my consignment, whether it is reached, what is it, how is it possible? It got multiple touch points, which means it's a network of physical people, physical objects or people, and there's a software embedded on that. Then there is electronics, there is a network, there is a sensor. All this put together is called an Internet of Things. I think probably, over define this word, probably struggle to get the right word for that. There are various things that we are connecting, so we call it Internet. It allows objects to collect and exchange data. All this data comes. Somebody reads the barcode after delivery. That data gets transferred to the central server. Sensors, key component that helps to collect live data. Then connectivity. Then the entire data gets connected. Gets transported or transmitted to the cloud. And then the data gets processed and then it comes back. Now, either we know whether our door is being broken open, or we realize that, okay, now I've switched on the heater or switched on the air conditioner, the room temperature has become very cold now, then you get a message. Or we find that from the camera, we see, oh, okay, some new person has come. Okay, it gives you an alarm, it gives an alert. So that is extremely important. It's not just about collecting the data, but how is it being used? There's got to be an end use of this particular data, right? So that is the very critical component here, the user interface. Information to be made available to the end user, whether it's from images from a camera or a change of temperature in the room or where the packet is has reached, so that I can decide whether I need to be at home today, or because today it's still in the evening at, let's say, 2 o'clock, it's still in Mumbai, it's not going to reach me today. So I can go out and then come after 6 o'clock. So we don't have to call anybody, it avoids a call. So that's Internet of Things. Some of the applications, I think Principal Sir already said, there are a lot of things, digitalization that has happened in the healthcare sector. Now, sitting at home, doctor can track, the heart rate, pulse, your calorie consumption, what is your BP, what is your, glucose level, whatever. Automobiles, that also again, Principal Sir said, anything end-to-end automobiles, diagnostics is happening over Internet of Things. We don't have to take the car to the garage, and anything is possible. We sit there, and then through the processor which is chipped into the car, and then of course with the right GPS, and then the data gets communicated. The data gets communicated. Obviously, they will not be able to help you much. Home, smoke detectors, home appliances, right from bulbs, locks, AC, etc. Supply chain, real-time tracking of goods. Some of these are some of the basic applications. There are much more comprehensive and complex usage aspects. Okay. Some of the benefits, it's a technical optimization, it's improved data collection. For example, we don't have to go and then keep waiting. So data gets collected from various points of time. Reduce wastage, for example, electricity at home. Then obviously, customer gets enlightened and improved customer engagement. Disadvantages, there are multiple devices, multiple things that are being connected. Security, privacy. It's very important. Imagine if there are 20 things that are being connected, especially at home. You got a camera, you got your refrigerator, your air conditioner, your cash box, which is digital, and then you got some important files that are being stored in your laptop that is connected. And then if it is going to be exposed to the IoT, that means it is in the external world. So the security and privacy is extremely important. So we go with a very reputed vendor with very strong credentials. Then complexity and compliance. Compliance comes with the security and privacy. So last part is the cloud computing. So what is cloud? Cloud has been a favorite buzzword for quite a few years now, and especially for large organizations which have been looking for cost control. So to start with is the storing, accessing data, and computing services over the internet. Means I don't need a server in my office. I don't need to keep anything. Now I'm sure whether we know it or not, we're already using a cloud. For email, what we use, our data is in the cloud, right? okay, we can say WhatsApp is there on your local mobile, but it is also stored on the server. And for example, Telegram doesn't use your local storage. Your mobile storage is not being used. It is being only the cloud storage is being used. So knowingly or unknowingly, we are already using cloud. And why organizations are moving towards this? Because it's an on-demand availability of services. Now, the companies do not have to carry that burden of maintaining huge number of servers, data storage, backup devices, databases, networking components, huge things that we need to do. No. So all that is possible if we get into a cloud platform or a cloud environment, right? And some of the examples are Amazon, Google, and we can have multiple types of clouds. Okay, private cloud exclusively for my own organization. Okay, but we don't store it physically in Bangalore or Chennai or Mumbai, but we keep it in a cloud server. And then community for a particular, for example, for schools and colleges, that could be community based. And public business to consumer. It's a very interesting thing. Like, for example, we talked about the invoice processing, right? Ariba is a very, very powerful, well-known, top-notch, platform provider for invoice processing. Very efficient. It's been there for years. A lot of companies use that. So Ariba has this whole cloud-based service. That's business to consumer. They have got this, and then the company that is utilizing this service on the cloud can interact with the consumers, and their vendors can send the invoices to the cloud platform. And the hybrid, a mix of all these platforms. Some of the services that we see here is software as a service. As we proceed, as we start using it day by day, okay, I use it for 10 transactions, I pay for 10. If I use 100 transactions, I pay for 100. For example, invoice processing I'm talking about. Whereas if you're going to buy that software and then keep it in our own, server, we need to maintain, we need to pay a license fee, and then if you do not get enough transactions, that software is not being fully efficiently utilized. So that is another problem. There are pluses and minuses, but I think the reason why people are going towards this cloud offerings is one of the reasons is this. Then platform as a service, it's not as a software as a service where we can use based on the transaction. Other one is a platform where some of the reputed technology platforms that are available, where companies do not have to buy licenses and build in their offices. They can use these environments to develop small modules and then use it in their infrastructure. And the third one is the infrastructure as a service, complete package for computing, which means right from the data service, not only the first one is the software. What we're talking about is using the Ariba tool, for example. Let me just give you an example, okay? Where I use 100 invoices, I pay for 100. Now here, what we are saying is complete, even my own applications, whatever I'm already using in my company, whether it is my payment application, my internal customer, ERP application. Oracle could probably give an alternative cloud platform, but I'm just giving as an example. All this can be transferred to the IT infrastructure can be transferred to a cloud. It is there, only thing is we cannot see it physically. We cannot see where the server is. So it is available in the cloud with whatever information security that we're asking for. Then network connection and storage devices. That's extremely important. What happens over a period of time is that companies struggle to create storage devices. How long do you retain? Because for audit purposes, for compliance standpoint, you need to store the data for 7 years. Correct? How long can you create these backup devices and where do you store all this? All this is possible in a cloud environment. And virtualization is one of the important concepts in cloud offering, which is partitioning of a single, it can be used in many technologies, but one of that is a physical server which is available. It gets partitioned into multiple logical servers. So what it means is our own competitor could be there in the same cloud platform using the same server, but it's got a logical division. Now, the reason why I'm giving you this example is very important because this is one of the very important aspects for many companies to take a decision whether they want to go for cloud or not. And at least I've got that experience when we worked with multiple banks and we were putting together a solution. The first thing that came as a standard question from every other bank is, how do we ensure that our data is secured and it doesn't get co-mingled. Like that's the word. It doesn't get mingled with others' data. So there's a lot of investment that is required in information security and control. Okay, so I know we are past 5. I have also given, you can also, I thought it's important, you can go through it in your leisure. So this is an IBM Institute for Business Value. They have done a study along with Oxford Economics from April to June. Very interesting. And I've shared some of the key points from here. You can also get it from the IBM website. That's why I've given the name, the reference also here. It's very useful, which may be especially for those people who are passing out this year and who are looking to start their career in the next 2 years. It talks about what are the important strategies that the CIOs and CEOs are going to focus on the next 2 to 3 years. Okay. Now, finally, I want to close this with few career tips. This is something at the end of the day. If you think, okay, that's all fine, but what is that I'm going to gain out of it? Okay, if you want to build a career in digital technology and transformation, decide on your technical competency. What is that you want to do? Which of the areas that you want to get into, and then build competency in that. Whether it's in AI, whether it's in RPA, whether it's information security, whatever. And other one is any transformation cannot be successful without customer empathy. It's not about something came to me, I did something and give it back. No, it doesn't work that way. Understand the business, understand the customer, and make efforts to understand. Understanding doesn't come automatically. Very often in my tenure, I have seen people do their work, what comes to their table, what comes to their desk. But what is important is to understand why am I doing this? What difference is it going to make? Is it going to make to the end customer? So then we can start thinking in a different way. That will help you to create an out-of-the-box thinking. Then you can add more value in your work. And never assume any barriers. This cannot be done. And question the status quo, because we have been doing it all these years for the last 10 years. Of course, your boss may say, okay, that's the way we have been doing it. You need to you need to be very careful saying that statement. Why can't we do it? But I think the thinking should not stop. We need to start questioning ourselves, why should we do it? And collaboration, unless we collaborate with your other partners, we cannot be successful in our work and understand each other. And that goes along with understanding the business and customer. And be ready to change. At some point of time, we also have to change so that we can offer a better output from ours. So see, these are some of the career tips I would say in terms of critical, skill sets that you may want to focus on. And last but the very most is you unlearn things, whatever you learned earlier, then learn again and relearn. So learning is continuous. Whatever you learned 3 years back, 5 years back doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so with that, I come to the end of this session, and I stop the session and hand it over to HOD and other
Thanks a lot, sir. It was a wonderful session, especially the digital transformation of data, as our principal sir has stated, that which will be more important for us especially for the security purposes. And thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable time to be spent with us. Now I request Mr. Suresh sir to proceed with.
Good evening, one and all. Thank you, sir. Such a great time spent by you with all of us. I'm sure that our students have been benefited a lot from your webinar. Thanks for coming, sir. On behalf of our college, I would like to thank you all for attended this wonderful session. Now, Mr. Grease will give vote of thanks. Girish. Girish?
Session, sir. Thank you for your valuable time to be spent with us. And we would be expecting more sessions from you based on digital platform as well as especially the cyber security from your side. And once again, I thanks a lot on behalf of the Department of Computer Science from DGVC. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you and be safe.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, sorry, ma'am. Network issue, ma'am.
Okay, stop the streamlining.